Is this the golden age of Australian MMA? Or has it just begun?
Like if you show up every day and you train hard, you can 100% do this.
If I look back 10, 15 years ago and I told myself that I was doing this, that would blow my mind.
We all fight for something different.
I mean, you got a problem if the only way you can be truly present is if someone's trying to kill you, and unfortunately I'm definitely one of those people.
It's like you're in high definition when you're fighting.
Just knowing that if I'm on my deathbed, I've reached my potential.
I just love it. I love the game, I love the training.
If that situation ever happens again, like someone tries to attack my mum, I'm able to stop it now.
This isn't about trophies or titles. This is about the gyms, the amateurs, the pros, showing up day after day.
Am I fighting not to lose or to win? And there is a difference.
Are you just a little bit crazy?
I'm fucking tapped in the head.
I'm Blair Bretag, and this is Australian Fight Culture. Welcome to the season finale of Unstoppable Australian Fight Culture. Over the last few episodes, we have travelled around Australia interviewing fighters on the local scene and international scene to find out one question. What makes Australia so dominant on the world stage? So it only seems fitting to ask someone who's been there and done that and paved the way for these athletes of today. This episode, we are chatting with none other than UFC veteran, Australian MMA royalty, Kyle Noke. Is this the golden age of Australian MMA? Or has it been in your case?
It's definitely been, because I'm not fighting anymore. I'd get up at 4 or 5 in the morning to go to the zoo, and I'd go from the zoo down to Brisbane every night, and I wouldn't get home until 10 o'clock at night anyway after training, so all I really needed was a bed. I'd live out of a car if I had to.
Did you have a backup plan?
Yeah, I had no backup plan, no education, no nothing. For me, it was fighting was everything. Like, you have to be prepared to kill someone or die in there.
You've also had to fight teammates.
You can't get as excited to fight, you know. I always hated it. Sometimes you need to throw your heart over the ring and your body will follow.
Now we're here at episode 6 of the Unstoppable series with Kyle Noke, the veteran UFC fighter, a pioneer of the sport in Australia, and now commentator, father, friend, coach, all the labels, my friend. How are you doing?
Doing well. It's good to finally get here and talk to you. I've watched a few of them. I haven't watched much of them, to be honest with you. I've been that busy lately, but it's in the plans to sit down and watch the rest of them. But I'm very honoured to come here and talk with you.
Appreciate your honesty. You could have said yes, and I would have asked you some questions, and you just wouldn't have the answer.
That's exactly why I didn't say yes. But I definitely want to watch them. Like it's something that's been needed to happen in Australia for a long time. And
now, for the viewers at home that don't know who you are, can you please give me a bit of a rundown on who you are, a little bit about your career, and some highlights and things we should know?
Kyle Noke, old man now. I started fighting when I was late in the game, 22, I guess, when I first started fighting. Fought here in Australia for a long time. It was hard for me back then to get a gig in the UFC, so basically ended up selling everything I had here in Australia, moved to America, had a couple of fights there, progressed to going to the Ultimate Fighter House. Did pretty well on that. And even then, given my record when I went into Ultimate Fighter House, I had the coaches pull me aside and like, what the fuck are you even doing here? Like, you should be in the UFC already with your record. But because coming from Australia back then, there was hardly anyone else. There was only Elvis Sinisic. There was a couple more that fought in the UFC before. That's the route I had to take to get known. So did the Ultimate Fighter. That went well. A couple more fights in the UFC. The way I look at it and think back, it was kind of like a transition from tough guys that could fight, like the Chuck Liddells and stuff, the guys that that were really tough and like to really bang and stuff like that. It was a mix between those sort of guys, and then you see all these athletes come up now, and these athletes are just way better, you know what I mean? Like, they're tough and can fight, but they're also athletic, and they've also been doing it since they were kids. So they're having their first fight in the UFC, and they've already been training for 10 years longer than I have, you know? So that was kind of what was happening as I was fighting. I met a guy named Tony Green, and he was a pro bodybuilder. He asked me to come along and do some training with him, and I was like, yeah, I'll come and train with you, and I want to be big and strong because I was playing footy at the time, and I thought he was going to take me to the gym to lift weights, and he ended up picking me up and goes, oh, you got a pair of shorts and shirt? And I'm like, yeah, fucking oath, I'm going to lift weights, you know? He's like, oh, no, and took me to the gym, and I looked around, I was like, oh, all right, I'll give this a go. jumped in, first class, absolutely loved it. As a blue belt, and I grabbed his head and I pulled his arm back like this, and he tapped, and I was like, oh, fuck, this is unreal, you know? And I also love the respect of it all, you know. I'd grown up watching Van Damme movies, Bruce Lee movies. I love martial arts, so I love the whole respect and how everyone was friendly afterwards and all that sort of stuff. So that's how it sort of got me into mixed martial arts. I absolutely fell in love with it.
It's crazy, like, you can literally, like, nearly rip each other's head off. But then, like, as soon as it's done, like you said, it's like, good round. And he was smiling again. It's like, people be watching. I'm like, are you guys actually friends? Like, yeah. But you just try to kill each other. I'm like, yeah, we do all the time.
Pretty messed up in the head.
Yeah, no, it is. But it's like, even during the rounds, like, you smile. Like, you like get a good shot. You're like, oh, good shot. And, like, you smile, like, or if you get, like, hit with a head kick, you're like,
Oh, you got it.
wow, that would have knocked me out. And then you dab each other up, you know what I mean? It's that type of bond. It's like you get respect. It's like, you would have just knocked me out. So that's just respect there. Every fight I've had, I've always talked to my opponents after. Hey, because it's weird, like, you share this bond with them, I don't know how to explain it.
At what point did your mindset start shifting, thinking, oh, shit, I could probably have a good run at this and take this somewhere? And what became your reason why for that?
When I started taking it very seriously, I think I can't remember how many fights in. It may have been like 5 fights in, 6, and I think I fought Luke Bazzuti, I think it might have been. And then he was well known back then, like he was kind of on his way out when I sort of was coming up as well. So he was a big name, someone that I looked up to as well. And then I think when I beat him, I thought, you know what, I could really make a run for this and not make a run for it, but I just wanted to throw all my eggs in that basket and say, you know what, I don't care if I don't make it, I'm going to do this. This is what I want to do. This is what I love doing, so I'm going to do this.
It's interesting, through the series we've chat to a lot of the fighters that we have. We set out to find out what made Australia so good, but what I found as a fighter talking to my fellow peers is there's this kind of, I've been calling it the maturity point, where the reason why you got into it is still very relevant, but the reason you're sticking to it and applying yourself differently changes at about the 4 to 8 fight mark, where you start realizing, oh shit, like maybe I can do this.
Yeah.
Not that you didn't have that belief, but that maturity sets in and say, oh, cool. But to do so, I need to really commit myself to this and put everything on the line.
Yeah, exactly. And like you said, it's the same for me. It was that same sort of time. I was like, you know what, I need to go now, because I didn't want to sit back in 10 years' time, 20 years' time, say, I had a little dabble at it, you know, like if I'd applied myself, I could have done it. I'd rather go, fuck it, I'm going to throw it all in, and if I make it, I make it. If I don't, I don't. And then 10, 20 years of time, I'm happy that I give it a go.
It's funny, that almost exact quote is from an episode with Max Kruger, our first episode. He said,
I fucking hate going, I haven't put everything in. I think just knowing that if I'm on my deathbed, I don't know, like, I reach my potential, and I don't know where that will lead me. Fighting isn't going to be a full thing, like 30, 35 maybe. But just knowing that when I'm at the end, just knowing it's all there.
Telling yourself you're a could have been, or I should have been this, or could have been this. I knew personally I do not want to be a could have been or a should have been.
Yeah.
I want to get there, and if I fall short, be like, I gave it a red hot go.
Yeah.
And I'm so proud of that. So it's good to hear that coming from someone like yourself who's already been there, done it. Like that's the mindset going into that.
Yeah, I could have been a pro surfer, but I'm not that good. I'd like to be.
Still could.
I
Still
could
could,
be.
man.
I'm
You're in
too
your
old.
prime.
My body hurts, man. I'm broken. Everything's broken. I can't paddle real well. I'm bad. My first fights were on Spartan, which is owned by Kerry Dunn down the Gold Coast. XFC started up with Justin Lawrence. And then a friend of mine, Shane Barmer, started up Warriors Realm. And they were kind of like the 3 biggest ones in Australia at that time, until a bit later on when Luke Bazzuti started up CFC down in Sydney. And they were kind of like the ones that were around when I was sort of trying to fight here in Australia.
Now, in the local scene, over 5 years, you had 17 fights, 13 wins, 3 losses, 1 draw. You got a draw on your record, mate. Come on. Anyway,
Should have been a win.
That's a lot of fights. That's a lot of fights in the local scene during that era. What were some challenges that came to be during that time in terms of opponents, accessibility of training?
I was lucky enough to work at Australia Zoo, where Steve Irwin was mad on MMA, so he built us a cage at the zoo everywhere for us to train. So I was training in my work time, and then also after finished work, I'd be driving to Brisbane from Sunshine Coast every night to go down there and train as well. So I was lucky enough to have kind of a professional career before I was a professional. But I do remember Steve, it was when I was fighting Hector Lombard, my only draw. Steve had sent us out to St. George out in the middle of Queensland, and I had to train with just me and my coach Dan Higgins at the time. I think it was for 3 weeks straight, like probably 4 or 5 weeks before the fight. So that was quite challenging, where we had no equipment out there. It was in the middle of winter, so it's cold out there. And we're training in an old shearer's shed, and we'd like literally got 4 or 5 jumpers and tracksuit pants on each, and then we'd start peeling them off as we start training. And then we just kind of took it back to an old school Rocky thing, where Dan would tie a rope around me and I'd pull him. He'd sit on a motorbike with the brakes on it, and I'd have to do sprints along the airstrip because he had a place where he landed the planes there, and I'd do all that kind of stuff, and just throwing kettlebells out in the dirt and stuff like that. So that was quite challenging in the aspect where I didn't have anyone to train with bar Dan Higgins, and I just kind of had to rely on myself to push myself the entire time, but I ended up loving doing that as well.
At what point in your career did you start working at Australia Zoo and have, I guess, this access to train and work all day long?
Don't know how many, probably the same around that 4 or 5 fight mark as well. Steve was just basically looking for another training partner because Dan had already started training him, and then Dan's like, hey, Kyle's looking for a job. And so he brought me in and basically gave me a job on the spot. Yeah.
So you're just training partner,
teammate? It was more of it was a bodyguard role for him and his family.
Yep.
But that was more, like, he didn't need a bodyguard. He was 6'2", 100 kilos. It was more just to stop people from harassing him around the zoo and basically have another friend to train with, just to make sure we got along. So I come in for the meeting straight away. He's like, yep, you got the job. Let's talk about fighting. And literally just sat there and talk about fighting the entire time.
I want to ask, with sponsorship back then, I say back then and make it sound really old.
It was a long time ago, man. Come on, that's 20 years ago.
It is. But it's like back in your day, man.
Yeah.
What does sponsorship kind of look like? In today's day and age, we've got social media and so many different avenues and ways to service businesses. But what does sponsorship look like back then? What did you have to uphold?
I was lucky enough to have sponsors earlier in the day, like Go Fast when they first come to Australia. It was like an energy drink like Red Bull. They sponsored me for a little bit. And then there was another guy named, this is the same early in my career as well, a guy named Chris Sun. And he owned a motorbike shop that was called Pit Boss. And we went in to see him and just said, hey, listen, we want to do this. This is who we are. And he knew who I was already. And I said, we're just like hitting him up for sponsorship basically. And it was only like $100 a week, or not even that. It was something very small. And he goes, you know what? He said, I'm going to give you 10 grand right now for a year sponsorship. And all you have to do is put your name on my thing. And that sort of helped fund me. But to be honest, back then, I didn't care about the money. Like, even all the way up to the UFC, I didn't care how much money. I'd live out of a car if I had to, It was just, I was spending most of my time driving anyway. I'd get up at 4 or 5 in the morning to go to the zoo. And then I'd go from the zoo down to Brisbane every night, and I wouldn't get home until 10 o'clock at night anyway after training. So all I really needed was a bed. So money, as long as I had money for fuel, that's all I cared about. And then I just train all the time.
Now, you've had 17 fights in the local scene. That's quite a lot of fights. It's a lot of people's full career, if not kind of double what the local scene career is now. And you decided to move to the States in 2007. Was that because you knew the opportunity was there? What was the kind of environment like to try and make that happen?
The move, just to get more recognition, like I said before, it was hard for an Australian to sort of get that notice and fight in the UFC, and they weren't really looking at Australians back then. My coach, Dan Higgins, at the time was going over there anyway. And then once I was over there, I was like, the guys in the room, in Jackson's training room, the amount of guys in there that you could mix it up with every single day, and just the atmosphere. Everyone's professional. Their life's all about fighting, and it really, I was like, holy shit, this is where I need to be. This is what I want to do, because back home there was Adrian Pang and Dan Higgins, the only guys that sort of hang at my level. So I was like, I need to be over there with these guys that are way better than me and can push me way harder. George St. Pierre was there, Rashad Evans, Keith Jardine, Mike Van Arsdale. There's going to be a lot of names that people don't know, but back then they were huge. They're like, Mike Van Arsdale is a legend in the sport. We had Shane Carwin, who used to come in as a big heavyweight guy, Cowboy Cerrone, but even later on with John Jones and Andre Arlovsky, like Holly Holm there for the win. Like, I could go through so many people that were like the core sort of group of us all. It was just a room full of killers and everyone going at it all the time.
It sounds like a hectic room.
Yeah.
Now, your entry after spending 1 or 2 fights in the States was the Ultimate Fighter Series. I think it was season 11, Liddell versus Ortiz in 2010. Tell me a little bit about that experience.
I hated it. Especially back then, I didn't like talking. I hated cameras. I hated the whole experience. I didn't like being away from my team, but I used it as, like, I understood the opportunity that was in front of me, you know, like something I had to do. I lied my way through every interview. They were like, "You're Australian?" "Yeah." And they're like, "You like drinking beer?" I'm like, "Yeah, I fucking love drinking beer, you know? Like, we're Australians, but we don't give us milk in the bottle, they give us beer." And then the dude's like, "All right, get the fuck out of the room, you know, we'll see you soon." So I didn't drink the whole time on the show. I didn't really drink back then either. Because they wanted a drama in the house, so that's what I had to pretend like I'm going to bring some drama. Got into the house, I'm the most quietest person in there, kept to myself the entire time. But I hated being away from my regular team, you know, and because I had such an extensive career before I got in there, and at that time Hector Lombard had gone on to be the Bellator champ and was knocking everyone out, the coaches kind of left me alone and didn't give me enough guidance in there. So I hated that aspect of it as well. I remember my fight that I lost to my teammate from Jackson's at the time, 20 minutes before the fight, and the dude knocks on the door. I'm sitting on the couch by myself, and he's like, 20 minutes to your walk, and I'm laying on the couch asleep with my hands aren't wrapped. I haven't warmed up. I haven't done a thing. Because the coaches literally left me alone. They're like, "Oh, he knows what he's doing." Like, yeah. So I was like 10 minutes, got my hands wrapped straight out, no warm up, no nothing, straight into the cage, and then fought Chris McRae at the time, who was my teammate. And even he said after the fight, he said, "Look, I guarantee 9 times out of 10 you're going to kick my ass. I just got lucky tonight." I'm like, "No, it's not luck. Like, you performed, you done well, you done everything you had to do." But for me, I like to have a warm up during the day and then a big hit out before I go out. And then I go out there feeling confident. I can't just go from 0 to 100 straight away.
I don't think many people can, especially fighters. Pattern and routine is so crucial to us.
Oh, yeah. I used to even have favourite underwear I used to fight in. And then I'd lose and be like, "Well, they're not my favourite underwear anymore, cunt. That's gone."
I'm looking for a new favourite underwear today.
Had to have my hair cut a certain way, and then I'd lose and be like, "Oh, well, change that now."
It's funny, the superstitions that we just kind of create on the spot. Like, mine's my walkout song, I have favourite underwear. And then you lose, you're like, "This is bullshit, it never works." But I mean, it keeps us somewhat sane, if you want to call it that. Now, you've gone through The Ultimate Fighter. You've made your UFC debut in 2011, and you won your UFC debut. I can't say that. Debut?
Yeah.
Is it debut?
I don't know. Is it?
I'm asking you.
Debut.
You've won your UFC debut. Debut.
Yeah.
What's wrong with me? Anyway, you won your first UFC fight in 2011.
Yeah.
Can you give us a little bit of thought, like break down your thoughts and the emotion behind that kind of success?
To be honest with you, not much emotion. I don't get emotional around. I don't get emotional on my wins. I get emotional on my losses. You know, I kind of keep the emotion out of it. But it was a good feeling. I remember thinking that everything I'd done leading up to that has kind of been validated by winning that fight. And then I felt like I also had something to prove from being an Ultimate Fighter and losing on the show in the way I did, like a decision on there. So I felt like I had a lot to prove. So it was more just gratifying to go out there and win that fight and go, okay, then I know I deserve to be here. You know, I know this is where I should be.
Did you have a backup plan? If you did put all this effort in all this time, did you have a backup plan? Did you ever think about that?
I did. I wanted to be a rock star, like I told you, up on stage singing, but I can't sing, so the backup plan would have been fucked. But
did you have a plan C?
No, I never had a plan C. It was always fighting. I had no idea what I was going to do once I retired. I had no education. I dropped out of school when I was in grade 8 or 9 or something like that. I can't even remember. I was 14 when I moved out of home, lived by myself at 14. I lived in the main street of Dubbo across the road from a pub above a shoe shop. And I used to go to the pub across the road at 14 and get kicked out of the pub for fighting in there, not for being underage. So, I had no backup plan, no education, no nothing. For me, it was fighting was everything. And it wasn't like fighting's everything, I'm tough, I'm mean. It was the martial arts aspect, like fighting was my life. I think what changed my life was Tony Green, the guy I was talking about earlier, a good friend of mine still is today. He bought me a book for Christmas on my birthday. It was Musashi. I'd never read probably 1 or 2 books before that in my life, and this is a massive book too. It's like 8 books in one, and I remember just sitting down and reading the entire book, and then when I put it down, I was like, "This has changed my life." Like I had a girlfriend, had a house. I just sold my half to her, broke up with her, moved to America. Like that's what I wanted to be. I wanted to be a martial artist. I wanted to live that life, and that was sort of like the catalyst, I guess, for me to go, you know what, this is it. Yeah.
Do you recommend that approach for everyone?
What, don't get a career and drop out of school early, or
all the above?
No. I don't know. Like, if you have that talent, if you have that desire and you're willing to do that, then yes. But, you know, an injury could occur and then you fall back and you've got nothing to do. You know, you could hurt your leg where you can't bend it anymore. So I don't know if that works. So maybe have a backup plan. But I think if you also have a backup plan, you have an excuse to get out as well. So I think if you put all your eggs in the basket, you can't leave 2 over here. You need to throw them all in. You need to, Daniel Dawson used to say, throw your heart over the wall and your body will follow. So just throw everything over there and go for it.
So now tell me just in brief a little bit about your UFC career. Some highs, some lows, some things that you didn't expect during that period.
Highs, every fight, every win. Lows, every loss, as we all say. But it was hard for me. I'd feel like I'd get to a good point in my career. I'd start putting a few wins together and then I'd get injured real bad and I'd have to have a year off. So for me, like being injury-free was the hardest thing for me. Like I had so many injuries throughout that time. So the highs of being fit and healthy and being able to train hard and put it all together, and the lows of being injured, being out and not having a job, sitting down watching everyone train, you know, not being able to get in there and mix it up with them. Because I enjoyed the training just as much as I enjoyed the fighting. Like I loved every aspect of it. I wish I could do it every day now still, but I can't.
Almost like you've watched the series before. That's exactly word for word what Kim Tran said in one of our episodes is.
Like at the end of the day, no matter where you're fighting, like I'm here because I like the act of fighting. And I like training. You know, even if I wasn't fighting, I'd be training. Like I like doing the thing. I'm not in it because I want to do media stuff or I want to be like it be an image thing. I just like it because I genuinely like fighting.
Yeah, you have to though.
Yeah.
Like you can't just say, I just love performing and I just love getting out there, but I don't like training.
Yeah, it's one way to get to the bottom very quickly. Is just wanting only loving the win, and not embracing the losses. If you love what you do and you train every day, and that's the byproduct of that.
Yeah,
that's a way better and more healthy way to kind of approach it.
Yeah,
and I think that's kind of carried on to today. Like you're still in shape, you still train all the time, still active on the beach surfing. And I think once you've got that, and you know that's a part of you, you can't lose that.
Yeah, I remember when I was a kid. I was boxing training, but when I was a kid, and the guy who knew my dad, he was a boxer as well, and he's like, you know, your dad could have been a great boxer. He's like, he's fucking really good, strong, hits hard, but he fucking hated training. So that's what I mean. You can't hate training and then go out there and expect to have a great fight. You know, you have to love, like we said, you have to love every single aspect of it.
Now you entered the UFC or in the UFC during I guess I want to call it the era change of stardom came through, where some of the big names you said before, you had these tough guys that are now turning into athletes and martial artists, and then that turns quickly into superstars.
Yeah,
you got your McGregors, your Rouseys, that era where people talk about the money started coming in. You were there during that kind of period. Did you notice the sport change? Did something change while you're there? Did you feel a shift in the sport?
To be honest with you, you do. I did feel a shift in the sport when these guys getting opportunities just because they could talk. You know, and I do understand that's an aspect of it, but it kind of took away that martial artist respect, you earn everything sort of aspect of it for me. But you know, I get it. I understand what it is. It's a promotion at the end of the day. You have to sell yourself. I think people do too much of it these days, but yeah, you know, like you did see it when these Ronda Rouseys come in, and you see all this money come in, and these guys living their lives, but some people can handle it, some can't.
Did you see any change in money through that period? Was money good in terms of your career? I guess that's a question that I'll say, because that's a question that comes up even today. Is like, oh, you're doing this career to pursue. Is there money in it?
Yeah.
And I can say right now, not for a long time. if you get to a certain point, and we're going back 10, 15 years. In your instance, the same question applies.
Yeah. Like it's just to touch on what you said. Yeah, it's like if all the stars align and you make it to the top and you're the top, then you get paid. But I find the pay is actually quite good in the UFC now for the guys. When I come out of the Ultimate Fighter House, I think I had one of the worst contracts the UFC have ever offered. Not offered anyone, but sort of signed anyone up for. And there was a couple of us that got it coming out of Ultimate Fighter 11. And it was a 9-fight, 3-year contract. And it only it was like only if one of them expired first. But if you got injured in that time, it got extended by whatever time you were injured. So it was 8 and 8 for the first year, 10 and 10 for the second year, and 12 and 12 for the next year. I remember coaching the Ultimate Fighter, and the coach's challenge was 20 grand or 20 something grand. Now that was more than my show and fight money altogether. And you know what though, it didn't bother me because I was doing something I loved, and the money wasn't really like even now I don't do anything for money. Once it expired and I started getting good money, put a dark blanket over the sort of whole fighting for me. Like I was never fighting for money, but once the money come into it, I'm like, oh, now I want to make money. And it took away from the fighting aspect for me a little bit.
That's so interesting. So interesting that I guess subconscious mindset kind of shifted. It's like, oh, I'm actually getting something for this.
Yeah.
The internal pressure on performing well, showing up, getting it done starts to kind of taint the fact that you just love what you do.
Yeah.
That's quite interesting.
And that like same like we were talking about it earlier. The fighting, like loving the training as much as you love the fighting. Like it was all the fighting was just to see how much you progressed in training. For me, it was like, you know, okay, he's a fight. Okay, everything that I've been training for is working. Now I go back and do more. So that's kind of like the fighting was never about getting paid. It was never about anything like that. Like, yeah, I enjoy it, but it was more like a test. Each time was a test to see how I'm progressing in my career and how my training's going, how my personal martial arts development's going.
And I tell our fighters, the journey up to you walking into the cage is the one that matters for you and yourself. The fight itself is just data. It's unemotional. Detach emotion to it. And what happens afterwards is how your reputation is going to be perceived from the people on the outside. So the start is up to you. The event itself is just for your coaches and team to know what we need to work on. And afterwards, how you respond to your loss or your win is going to build your reputation and how others perceive.
Now, looking back on your career, was it all worth it?
Absolutely. I think any pursuit of a dream, whether you fall short or hit your mark, is worth it. I think life's short, you know, go for it while you can, you know, like, yeah, well, like, it's a whole sitting on the deathbed wishing that you'd done something, you know. Sort of off topic, I've got a nephew now who's getting into acting. He's only 20 years old, but his mum keeps on pressuring him, get a job. I'm like, why? So he can be 64 years old and retire and then try and do something that he loves? Like, do it now. Like, life's short, man. Do what you love now. Like, throw all your eggs in one basket, you know. Who cares? So what? There's plenty of time to make money. There's plenty of time to do something else. Like, I retired when I'm 36 and now I have to choose another path. I'm in a good spot now, like financially, family-wise, everything's still great. I still got to shoot for that goal and I still got to live that part of my life and you know, I'm happy. So, yeah, I think it's always worth it. Yeah.
Agreed. Would you change anything? Now that you've learned the lessons, you've made the mistakes, would you go back and change anything or do anything differently?
Yeah, the guy that busted my shoulder in training, I wouldn't train with him that day. And the guy that busted my knee in training, I wouldn't train with him. I don't know if I'd do anything different. I'd probably, looking back in retrospect, I'd probably move back to Australia from America sooner. I think towards the end of my career, I was homesick and didn't realise it until I'd retired and come home. And then I was like, oh, fuck, this is what I've been missing this entire time. I think it's hard to, it's easy to sit back and say, oh, I could have done this differently, I could have done that, but you don't know how those things that you would change would snowball into something else anyway. So you just got to, you know, play the cards you get dealt.
Yeah, and live with it and
Exactly.
be content with it.
Yeah, and I think it's the best. You put 100% into everything you do, then you can sit back and say, you know what, I've done everything I could. Yeah.
Now, in the last 10 years or so since your retirement, how have you seen the Australian MMA or the MMA scene in general evolve from what it was when we first started, but more so in the last 10 years?
It's just jumped leaps and bounds. I'm commentating for Eternal now. I've like literally got the best seats in the house. Like, you've been up there close now. Like, these amateur guys that are coming through now are leaps and bounds where I was as a professional when I was fighting in Australia. You know, they're sharp, they're clean, they're doing everything right, they're putting the right combos together, they're doing absolutely everything they can do in the cage. I think Australian MMA right now is I don't think it's peaked, but I think it's getting there. You know, it's the talent, the drive, the skill these guys have is absolutely phenomenal.
when you are cage side and you're seeing these fighters, and I'm talking at all levels, amateur, pro, it is scary.
Yeah.
It is like I'm watching guys. I remember just from my 10 years from when I was doing Muay Thai as an amateur to then watching these amateur MMA fighters with a lot more discipline, a lot more skills and things they have to apply, how they're performing, what they're doing, and how they're moving.
Yeah.
I would shit my pants if I had to fight one of those guys in like that same situation. It's insane, and it's really, really cool. And just the short period of time that I've been part of the sport, to see the local scene develop so much. We see the international scene and the popularity and how it changes, and that's always going to keep growing. It's doing a lot for the sport, but I think Australian MMA in the last kind of 5 to 10 years has turned into a whole different beast.
Oh, absolutely. And it shows by the guys that are in the UFC now. Like, they're not just in the UFC doing well, they're in the UFC dominating, and some of them are undefeated in there, and they're taking over. And I think there's a lot of guys on the Australian circuit right now that could not only make it to the UFC, but do well in the UFC as well. But it's just getting that opportunity, it's getting that chance to get in there. It's making a name for yourself. And I mean, I think it's coming back the other way, but for a while there, it was more about how you can promote yourself to get there. I think now guys are starting to get there based on talent alone, but I think there's a lot of guys on the Australian circuit. I think every Eternal show that I commentate, I'm like, that guy, they could all be hanging in the UFC right now, easily. Yeah.
Talking about opportunity, what's your thoughts on this, on fighters with 6-0 records, 7-1 records, getting the call up to the next stage with these new avenues? Considering you had 17, 18 fights before you had your chance, that's a big contrast of experience, of knowledge, of just time under tension. What's your take on that?
The only problem I have with this now is a lot of these guys now will protect their records until they get to the UFC. So they don't know if they could be pushed in there too early. They've never been tested. They've always fought guys who they know they're going to beat, right? I think it's all a mindset. If you're 6-0 and you've done absolutely everything you can and you've fought everyone, like you've never said no and never protected your record, then you deserve to be there. But if you padded your record just to get in there, then I think that shows some signs of mental weakness and you basically, your goal was to get in the UFC, not to get in the UFC or not to get to a big show and thrive. Your goal's just to get there. Like, why set your goal there, set it up here?
You've half answered it here, but if we're picking and choosing to take the easy route to the top, is there not enough high-level guys here to test ourselves?
No, I think there's enough high-level guys to test ourselves. I just think it's these guys that, they know guys at their level and they won't fight them, or they'll choose to go other organisations or do everything else to sort of, not fight someone because they know that that's going to be a hard fight. Like, I'll wait till I get to the show before I fight someone like that. Like, then how do you know you deserve to be there? If you haven't fought the best guy out there in your division, in your weight class, in your region, then how do you know that you get to the big stage and win as well? Like, find out now.
This goes back to your testing of the training.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, that's the test. It's like, I've put all this effort in to beat someone like you. How do I know until I do it?
Exactly.
How do I know until I take that challenge? And if I don't get that win, well, obviously I've got work to do.
Yeah.
Also, I need to kind of push myself to get that next level and know that I can do it. I do see it a bit in the local scene as well. And would it be fair to say it's this kind of new school, old school approach to the sport where old school, I hear stories, it's just get in there, fight. Whoever they put in front of you, just get it done.
Yeah.
There's new school where we're sometimes tiptoeing around the hard fights or looking at different opportunities to get to the same position. Is this a new school, old school clash?
I think it is, I remember when I was fighting before, we wouldn't even find out our opponent was till a week or 2 weeks before the fight. Like, they'd say, do you want to fight on this show? And then they'd ask a bunch of dudes if they want to fight on that show. And the matchmaker wouldn't get back to you like till a week before the fight. Say, I got you a fight. You're fighting this guy. Great. So, and I think today people, like, they want to know 3 months out who they're fighting. They want to prepare for them. They want to, which is valid, I'm not saying that's the wrong way to do it. But I think if you want to be a fighter, you fight. Before I got matched with anyone, they'd be like, who do you want to fight? I'm like, I don't care. I'll fight anyone. Anyone. And then they go, okay, we've got you this guy. And I'll be like, anyone but him. Like, in my mind, I'd think, fuck, not that guy, not that guy. But then I'm like, all right, cool. No, I'm fighting him. Cool. But, it's. I think people just need to fight and not protect their record and really test themselves. Like, you want to be in the UFC, or do you want to thrive in the UFC, or do you want to be in the big show, or do you want to thrive on the big show? You know.
I've actually asked that exact question to myself over the last 8 months, and it was leading up to my Darcy Vendy fight. It was, I believe I'm good enough at that point in time to get to the big show.
Yep.
But I knew that I was not good enough to thrive or be there. And I said, what's the point of getting all the way to that level just to get dominated and not be your true potential?
Yep.
So I had to have that kind of conversation with myself and turn into another gear and say, no, I need to be ready. So when I get there, I absolutely dominate. And my whole training shift, I took on the hard fights, I learned a lot from Darcy, but I knew that that's going to make me so much better for that next level.
Yeah. So how do you think your training's changed from before the Darcy Vendy fight to after, like your mindset, your way you train, everything?
Um,
I'm interviewing you now.
Yeah, switch seats. I remember leading up to the Darcy Vendy fight, I had a quote in my mind, and it was, "What's done in the dark will shine in the light."
Yeah.
And the theme of that for me personally was, I knew that I could be a little bit ego-driven and want the light on me.
Yep.
And the quote was to prove to myself that I need to earn that light.
Yep.
And I need to put in the work when no one's around.
Yep.
The little things. I was training lots. I was doing heaps of sessions, but it's the small things. How much more could I do and not get the recognition for?
Yeah.
And just that small mindset shift started changing things. The earlier mornings, the stretching routines, the ice baths. I'm talking the 1% that you weren't doing before, but when you're doing it for 3 months leading up to a fight, for hours a day, that adds up a lot.
Yep.
And then moving on from there, realizing, okay, cool. Like I want to dominate. I haven't had a chance to upskill. I've just been fighting. I'm sitting down and mapping out my systems. Who do I need to train with? Where do I need to go to be that next level again?
Yep.
So one, it was mindset shift.
Yep.
Is hey, you're doing this a bit too much for ego. You're loving that limelight. Take that away and let's do it for the right reasons.
Yep.
And two, just fuck the excuses. Just get it done.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's the beauty of it. Not like losses are good, but that's the beauty of having a loss. Is you get to go, okay, what did I do? How do I fix this? And sometimes when you win, you're just like, yeah, we're doing everything right. Keep going. But sometimes a loss puts the brakes on, and you're like, fuck, what do I have to fix now? Okay, maybe I should do this. Because you know yourself, every time you want to go into a fight, when you are like the most confident you ever are in a fight, you go, you know what? I've done absolutely everything I can for this fight. There's not one thing I've left. But when you start thinking, oh, maybe I could have trained a bit more, or I didn't really have this, I didn't really have that. That's when you mess yourself up before you even have a fight. And speaking of that ego thing, I remember, I think I'd won my first 3 or 4 fights in a row. And then before the fight, I'm mixing with the crowd. I'm talking to people in the crowd. Everything was good, I was like, oh, I got this. And I remember walking out like showing my fist as I'm walking out, and the ego was super high. And then I go out and I think I got submitted. I got armbarred by a dude in a gi. He wore a gi in the ring. But yeah, so humbling afterwards. And I was like, even looking back, I'm like, what a dickhead. Why am I walking out like I'm the man going to knock everyone out,
But the lessons you learned from that.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Imagine if I just kept that, or won that fight and then had a few more fights, and the ego probably got so high that if I did have a loss, then I'd just crash and not fight ever again or something. I don't know. But yeah.
Yeah,
Crazy.
fly too close to the sun, you get burnt,
Yeah,
right?
exactly right, Icarus.
Now, you were on season 11 on The Ultimate Fighter.
Uh-huh.
I want to ask about your thoughts on the new opportunities or the amount of opportunities in Australia for fighters. So we've got Dana White Contender Series, we've got Road to UFC, we've got options to fly overseas and fight on other promotions to get some more international experience so we can get signed directly to the UFC. There's so many things now that are so accessible that were probably a figment of your imagination back in your day.
Yeah.
What's your thoughts on all these new opportunities?
I think it's great. Like I said, the fighters here are at that level where they can perform at these on the big show. So I think it's absolutely phenomenal. These guys have the Dana White Contender Series. They have all these opportunities, so they have a way to test themselves. And not only that, like you don't have to go there. The UFC wasn't coming to Australia when I first started fighting. Not until I got in the UFC, they started coming to Australia. But even having the Eternal having their fight nights before the UFC events, and you got the UFC brass coming to the Eternal fights to watch these guys fight, So even that's a massive opportunity. They may be there to watch someone else, and they see you fight on Eternal that night before, and they go, "Oh, this guy's fucking good. Let's sign him up." So there was never any of that when I was going. So I think the opportunity's there if you can. Do everything you can to win that, to put yourself out there, then the opportunities are there for you to do it.
We're finding a lot of success, local scene and international. That's why we're doing this series. But do you feel like we're missing anything in that crossover point from the local scene to going international? Whatever the route is, whether it's the Contender Series road to UFC, making that shift, as you know, that it's different. Are we missing anything as a whole, as a country, when we make that shift, or are we fully well prepared?
No, I think we're doing everything right. I think guys like Cam O'Neill and all that putting on the big shows, getting people used to the spotlight, getting people used to it. And even you doing this show, right, doing what you're doing right now, is getting people used to another aspect of the fight game people don't think about, is sitting down, having to talk to people and having to be in front of a camera, you know. So it's very rare you'll get a guy like Mike Tyson who used to sell fights back in the day without even saying a word. Well,
yeah, it does pay off. It really does. The opportunities that it brings, as much as it's not the fight game, it is now, unfortunately. Like that's the way the sport goes. You don't have to be great at it, but if you can be competent, they will choose that over someone who's not.
Yeah,
like
exactly.
That's just the reality of the sport now.
Guys like Alexander Volkanovski, you know, these guys, Robert Whittaker, these guys that have paved the way, they're superstars, and people want to be superstars as well. So they want to, they see the limelight, they see the fights, they see everything like that. I think it's also kids these days don't have an outlet either. So I think people are falling into MMA a lot more because especially young men these days, they don't really have that outlet. They can't. Like, I grew up in Dubbo. I fought nearly every weekend in Dubbo. We used to play football every weekend. If we didn't win the football game, we sure as hell won the fight. So I think I had that outlet a lot growing up. Because as soon as I started fighting professionally, I never had a street fighting. I had a couple in America. But I never really fought in the street ever again. A lot more people are drawn to mixed martial arts now, whether it's a discipline aspect of, hey, my kid needs discipline or I need something to do. So I think there's a lot more gyms around now. The sport's a lot more popular. So I think there's a bigger sort of pool to draw from to get people to fight. So I think that's another part of it as well.
If you've enjoyed part 1, make sure to tune in tomorrow, as part 2 will be releasing, where Kyle Noke and I chat about each of our guests of this series, looking at the mindsets and the way they're applying themselves and how that is building to the ultimate question: why are we so dominant on the world stage? So tune in tomorrow for part 2.